Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Today's guest is Dr. Mark Wilson. Dr. Wilson's been with us before. He's now retired, but his brain has not stopped working.
We hope.
We'll find out in just the next 22 minutes. But so tis the season, Doc, of flu, RSV. COVID's never gone away, probably not ever going to go away, keeps morphing into different things. Encapsulate what's going on with us with all these variants, not just of COVID, but of all the other things as well, if you can for us.
Well, it is the season, in fall is time to really think about getting vaccinated about some of these things that peak in the fall. And so last year we talked about the triple pandemic or the triple-demic, and that was COVID, influenza, and respiratory syncytial virus or RSV. And it overwhelmed our hospitals with those three viruses happening at once. So all three of those are seasonal viruses that peak in the fall, although as you've mentioned, COVID tends to be with us year-round, and we've had peaks in the summer and other times so far. So, but it does tend to peak in the fall also, in addition to other times of the year.
Well, do you attribute we had a spike recently in COVID, which from everything I could read, it was attributed to the fact a lot of people were traveling, a lot of people were congregating,
right.
And then school has recently started back, which caused another spike. Do you think that's what drives that, or is it just simply the fact that it's out there and is going to stay out there?
I think it's a combination of things. Certainly it does spread when people congregate, so it looks like some of that has been when the weather gets colder and more people are indoors and together for holidays, but also when people are together for things in the spring and summer. So it's been a little different. And plus the fact that it's constantly mutating, people are getting reinfected, and so that's another issue.
So the spiking, do you think that's attributed to the fact that school has started back, people were traveling and congregating and that sort of thing?
Well, with COVID, we have had spikes that have occurred in the cool weather when people do congregate inside and get together for holidays, but we've also had spikes in the spring, summer. So it's not following the same pattern that the flu typically does, but some of it is certainly because people are congregating for different reasons.
But COVID's different than the flu.
It is different, yeah. It has some similarities, but it's mutating a lot. It has some different symptoms. We're still learning about it, but the flu mutates a lot. So there are a lot of similarities. And
as a consequence of the mutation, the vaccination has to be tweaked, right?
That's right, for both COVID and influenza.
But for influenza, that's been going on since the beginning of flu vaccination.
Right, yeah.
So people, one of the biggest beefs I've heard from scholars is that we've developed a vaccine in a relatively short period of time, and I'm speaking of the COVID vaccine, when it took Jonas Salk 25 years to eradicate polio, which has now surfaced very little, but it has surfaced again as well. How do you qualm the fears of those people who believe that we rushed into this?
Well, we did and we didn't. So the technology for the monoclonal for the monoclonal vaccine was developed for a long time and was well known. It was developed quickly because we had that science already developed, but it was extremely well studied before it was released to the public. In fact, more than any other vaccine previously had been studied in trials before being released with very good data. Now, where we are right now, hundreds of millions of people have been vaccinated for COVID-19. So we have plenty of experience.
Globally?
Yes. Well, and yeah, a lot of the United States as well.
Do
Right.
we still have shortfalls in some of the more underdeveloped countries?
Yes, I mean, just because there's limited resources in the healthcare systems in some countries, but yeah.
So a fear that I also hear a lot about, and I even have it myself, I've had my flu shot. I was offered another shot simultaneously, and I declined. Is there any problem with doubling up or even tripling up, or would you recommend against that?
Well, for these vaccines that we're talking about for this fall and winter, RSV, influenza, and COVID, it is okay to combine all three. It is a lot to get 3 shots all at once. I got my COVID shot and my influenza shot today, and
So
I
if
feel
you
great.
drop over right here,
Well, you could say maybe it was that, but probably isn't, just because it's very, very unlikely. So you can now. Some people have more reaction than others to vaccines, and so I think it's reasonable if you want to maybe do 2 at a time, and then maybe go back and get the third one later. That would be reasonable. The RSV vaccine, which we can talk about, is the newest of all of these.
we'll talk about it when we come back from break.
Sure.
All right? This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking about a subject that we all need to listen to. I know there's resistance. It's human behavior. But so RSV, say that word again. What's that stand for?
RSV stands for respiratory syncytial virus. It's a
Syncytial.
Yeah, it's a virus that affects our respiratory system. For a lot of people, it just causes a minor cold, or maybe people don't even have symptoms. But in the very young and in older people, it can cause severe illness with a lower respiratory infection, like pneumonia. And that can cause hospitalization and death.
So it's what happens in the lungs as a consequence of the virus that makes it so severe and what can cause death.
And that's why there is now a vaccine developed for it, because for infants, for example, like less than 1 year old, it is the #1 cause of hospitalization in the United States.
Where's it been? I mean, I hadn't heard RSV until the past few years. I mean, first there was COVID. I've never heard of COVID. I've never heard of RSV. Where's it been all these years?
If you talk to pediatricians, who, especially those that work in the hospital, they've known about it for a long time.
Have they treated it with a vaccine for a long time?
Not until recently. We've only recently, just this summer and in the spring and summer of this past year,
How did
had
they
a new
treat it
vaccine.
before?
So mostly with supportive care. There has been a monoclonal antibody that's been used to treat the babies with it.
Now, when you say monoclonal, you got to
Yeah.
dumb that down for me.
Yeah, so that just means it's one type of antibody, but it is an antibody that can be given to the babies to either treat it or prevent it. And that's not a vaccine, it's an antibody against the virus.
Okay.
But the vaccine has only recently been approved by the FDA. This will be the first fall and winter for which we've had a vaccine. So, you mentioned earlier, a lot of people are a little overwhelmed by vaccine. Vaccine fatigue is a thing, but this is a very important one, and we can talk more about why that is true.
Why is it true?
Well, because it causes a lot of hospitalizations and a lot of death. So for people over the age of 65, it's been like an average of 60,000 to 160,000 hospitalizations per year, and between 6,000 and 10,000 deaths per year from RSV in older people.
Has that number increased?
That's just been an average over the years. So one reason it's come to your attention more is because we've had this overlap of RSV and COVID and flu that has put a lot of pressure on our hospitals. So it's gotten more attention in the media recently. So there is also, just to complete the issue why it's so important, it is the number one cause of hospitalization for infants, and it causes about 40 to 60,000 hospitalizations a year for infants and about 100 to 300 deaths among infants or children under the age of 5.
So another fear that I hear from people is, you've already alluded to the fact that you had 2 shots today. It's okay to take more than one at a time just to get it out of the way, but people are likely to have some fatigue or headache or something for a short period of time. Is that a fair statement?
All 3 of these vaccines, flu vaccines, RSV vaccine, and COVID vaccine, do have some common side effects. And they're not in the majority. I would say the majority of people are going to get a little soreness in the arm, but otherwise, about 25 to 50% of people are going to feel a little bit of achiness in the muscles or joints, a little fatigue. They can get a headache. They might feel a little bit feverish. So these are fairly common side effects. So if you're combining the vaccines, you might be a little more likely to get those side effects than if you do one at a time. But it is safe to combine them, either 2 at a time or 3 at a time.
And it would be short term in terms of a side effect.
Yeah, just for a couple days for most people. And so really it's an individual decision. If you're a little bit concerned about side effects, you might want to split them up. If you're a real busy person who only gets one chance to go to the pharmacy or doctor to get your vaccines, then it might be good to go ahead and get it done.
What do you do with the people that fear that they're actually being injected with the disease?
Well, it simply isn't true.
In other words, we're going to give you COVID so that your body can develop antibodies to COVID.
Yeah, so all these vaccines are not actual live virus, so that's just not possible. The only exception is the flu mist, the nasal mist for the flu vaccine, which has a live attenuated virus. So there's some people that have immune deficiency or who are pregnant who should not get that one.
All right, I got a good question for you when we come back from break, if I can remember it.
All right.
So don't leave. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking to Dr. Mark Wilson about vaccines and the time of the season that it is when people are normally getting vaccines. So there's a gentleman that works with me who has had all vaccines and has had COVID 4 times. Mm-hmm. How do you explain that? Because we're confused.
Sure.
I've had it twice.
Yeah,
and
so
I've had all vaccines.
When COVID vaccine first came out, it was in the initial studies that said it was more than 90% effective, which was true. We had hopes that it could, help prevent people from getting it. But experience showed us that people can still get COVID after getting a vaccine. People can still get the flu after getting the flu vaccine, et cetera. No vaccine is perfect. But what's really, really important and has been borne out to be true is that all of these vaccines prevent hospitalizations and prevent deaths. So if we look at the people that have been in the hospital with COVID, most of them by far have been the unvaccinated.
And I think the statistics support the fact that our hospitals are not overrun like they were at the peak of the first wave of COVID.
Right, yeah. And
clearly.
That's right. And we had to take some drastic measures initially to help protect our hospitals, even before we got the vaccine. Yeah. But the vaccine really has made a huge difference. And for most of us who have been vaccinated who then happen to get COVID anyway, it's usually a really mild illness.
Yeah. It likes my throat.
I've heard that from other people.
Yeah, it's just I become another person
Yeah.
About 3 hours into the day. So what are the recommendations for our viewers in terms of to vaccine or not to vaccine?
Yeah, so the recommendations are, it's real simple for COVID and flu. It's everybody age 6 months and older. Now, if you're a really young, healthy person, you might want to talk to your doctor about it, but that is the recommendation. For RSV, it's a little bit more complicated, but let me go over that. It is recommended for people over age 60 after a discussion with a healthcare provider or a pharmacist to decide whether or not you're one of the people that have risk factors that might make getting an RSV injection or vaccination a good idea. So that's called shared decision making. It may or may not be for you, but certainly if you have underlying health conditions like heart disease or lung disease or your immune system's compromised, you should get the RSV vaccine if you're over the age of 60 or over. It is also recommended for pregnant women at 32 to 36 weeks pregnancy in order to protect their baby when the baby is born in that first few months through passive immunization. So the mother gets the vaccine, develops antibodies, passes them on to the baby, and that protects the baby before the baby's able to get other vaccines. There is an option, however, if the pregnant woman is not comfortable getting the vaccine, there is an option to wait till the baby's born and then give the baby that monoclonal antibody, give the baby the injected antibodies against RSV. So for the babies, it is recommended one or the other for all of them, either vaccinating the pregnant mother or giving the baby the antibodies.
So in that example of the pregnant woman who gets the vaccine, are you telling me that that baby that is born from that pregnancy is immunized upon birth?
That's correct, because the antibodies are passed across the placenta to the baby.
But there's still the annual shot that has to be given?
For RSV, we don't know yet. That might be a one and done, but it's too early to know. This will be the first season it's been used, so time will tell whether repeat vaccinations are needed. The monoclonal antibody for the infants, if that's the route that's chosen, that only lasts a little while, so that might have to be given the next year, especially for high-risk infants that have other medical problems.
These COVID variants that keep popping up, they seem to have milder symptoms the more that pop up. In other words,
Right.
The worst one was the first one, but the ones that have followed have, seems to me, diminished in their intensity in terms of symptoms for the individual.
That's mostly been true. Now that Delta, which was a subsequent one, it was pretty bad. But what's tend to happen with the virus is it mutates, it becomes more infectious, but a little bit less severe. But the other thing that's been happening is a lot of the population's been vaccinated and or has been infected. So we probably have well over 90% of the population now that has either been immunized or infected or both. So that also makes it a little less likely that people are going to have severe disease because they have some antibody protection.
So don't get too confident. Just because I've been vaccinated and I've had it twice, I'm less likely to get it again. And if I do get it again, I'm less likely to have severe symptoms. Is that?
Yeah, you're less likely to have severe symptoms, get hospitalized, or die from it, but it's still no guarantees. This virus has been very unpredictable, and so if you're a high-risk person, you might still want to take other precautions like wearing a mask, when it's circulating a lot in the population. There's also the risk of long COVID, which a lot of people have, which can be quite debilitating. There's some evidence that the more times people get infected, the more likely they are to have long COVID. So COVID has just been a really tough one. It has thrown us a lot of curveballs. It has caused all sorts of problems.
We could probably do a whole show on COVID.
Yeah, except that everybody's tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, we are. Thanks for coming on
Yeah,
today.
my pleasure.
I appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule. I use the term loosely. This is our Issues Birmingham. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next Sunday.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me.
I think it's just vapor and flavors. It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes.
Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
Ready!
We don't have time for spills.
Next.
We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
Hang on! Something unforgettable is coming to Comet.
Live long and prosper.
It's the first annual Comet Fest.
Got it. Beam me up. Find it on your digital dial on 21.3.